long and prosperous.
I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
Lilu Dallas Multipass.
Shut up and take my money.
By Grabthar's hammer. What a saving.
One does not simply walk into Mordor.
X never, ever marks the spot.
Winter is coming. You're a wizard, Harry.
Stay a while and listen.
Hey, old Kermit the Frog.
Your ties are cool.
So say we all.
This is a Play on Nerds. Welcome to episode 198 of A Play on Nerds. I'm one of your fabulous co-hosts, Jarman.
And I'm the double fabulous co-host, Steve.
Whoa, double.
Twice the fabulous. That, just for the record, that is total of 3 fabulouses for this episode between the two
true.
of us.
That is 3 fabulouses, and that's very appropriate because this week we're bringing you some wonderful nerd roll of fortune. So we have no idea what we're going to be talking about later on in the show, but AI list.
But our AI overlords do.
They will tell us what we'll be talking about. But before we get to that, whatever it may be, Steve, what have you been up to since our last recording?
Oh, man, not too much. Working as usual this past weekend. We had my cousins came over. We did a night of some beers and some board games and stuff.
Love it.
And then the next day we went with the kids. We went down to a local creek park that's about 5 minutes away from us. Went and splashed in the creek and looked at cool rocks.
The creek. You got to explain to people what creeks are for those who don't know.
It's a creek or a small stream.
Why do they call it a creek?
I don't know. It's just down the creek. Well, but here's the thing, at Bauman Camp, where we're actually going to try to go on Saturday, there's the creek, which is a small stream, maybe 5 to 10 feet wide in some places, that goes down through some rocks, ice friggin' cold. But then there's the creek, which is the larger tributary it leads to.
Interesting.
Which is 20 to 30 feet across and gets down to maybe 5 feet deep, 6 feet deep in a few places.
What if it's a northern thing to say the creek?
So are we going to the creek or are we going down to the creek?
Interesting.
Yeah, Pennsylvania. But other than that, big news around here. Joyce has her first ballet recital this coming Saturday.
Nice.
And then big plans coming up on Saturday. We're hoping to go up to camp, as mentioned. On Sunday, going to a wedding.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to figure out how to explain the relation, but it's my cousin Matt's widow's new marriage.
Interesting.
Yep.
Wait, your cousin Matt is the one who passed away?
Yeah, Matt passed away from like an extremely rare cancer a few years ago, 3 years ago. And his widow, who has my 2 second cousins, Jack and Theo, his kids.
Oh, gotcha.
Is getting remarried. And we are invited.
Well, that's nice. It's always fun to go to a wedding, especially for her to celebrate in that way.
Yeah. It's just weird.
It is weird. That's family for you.
Admittedly. Yeah. But like, I know my mom listens to this, so mom, forgive me. But like, this is one of those weird ones where I just don't know how to feel.
Yeah. It's an odd feeling. That's fair.
So at the end of the day, the way I'm praying, I'm going to support Uncle Tom and Aunt Pam.
Yeah.
Who are the ones that lost Matt and who still have the grandkids. That's
the connection to the family right there. That's true.
But yeah,
I never turn down going to a wedding in general. It's just always nice there's fun parties. I cry. And even if I don't know the bride and groom, I'm just sitting there weeping away.
Yeah. This is just, once again, it's one of those ones where I'm like, I'm not sure why I was invited. But all right.
But here I am.
But here's the gift. And here I am. I wore my nicest pants.
He's got 3 pair. One of them's real nice.
One of them's real nice. The other one, not so good. So, Jarman, what have you been up to?
Well, I've been working like crazy, but also trying to fit in the Fringe Festival, which is I probably talked about it last year, but we go every year. My wife and I, she loves going. I've been going too for a long time. And it's the biggest one, kind of one of the biggest ones in the East Coast, the US, in Orlando. And a lot of the artists really like it for its just kind of, down party kind of feel, not very corporate. It's very, it's over 2 weeks and there's tons of little plays and they're really wacky and weird. And it's not juried, which means that anybody can get in. It's a lottery system. So the plays can be real bad or they can be real good. It's kind of a crapshoot. Anybody can get in with their show. as long as you have a show in the day, you can do it. So
do they have to preview or meet any standards? I'm sure there has to be some standards.
You just got to make the lottery and then pay properly for your thing. And they so far they've not had to reject anyone for anything just outrageously offensive or something, but you can
that would be my thing. It's like it just feels like it turned into a weird propaganda thing for someone.
Well, there's so many plays that have political messages, but they're usually just happen to be because of where we are in Orlando. It's a very liberal pocket, and in Florida, so it's very usually left-wing messages, which I happen to align with, so it's okay. But so they don't usually have a lot of problems in that regard.
Yeah, if you look at like famous playwrights through time, you don't find many like right-wing nut jobs.
Yeah, there's not a lot of right-wing nut job playwrights. You're not wrong. So it works out pretty well. I've seen a great dance show about like based off Jekyll and Hyde from these people from Canada who came down. A musician who's local here, but has been in like some funny B movies. Who did a play. We had somebody who's worked at every single theme park you can imagine in Florida and talked about their experiences for an hour. And it was funny and scary because she was injured multiple times at different parks and they don't talk about it. And they kind of pay you to make you go away and not talk about it. I saw a play called Cocaine Bear based off the movie, based off the real story, which was an opera. It was the Cocaine Bear opera, which was hilarious.
I feel like that popped up on YouTube at some point, maybe.
Maybe there's a version of it, or maybe it's the same version they did it here in Orlando, but it was amazing.
It's a hot new musical,
There's a friend of ours has a show called Field Guide to the Gays. We watched that one, which was, he does like a PowerPoint presentation for the whole audience, teaching them about how the gay community came about and all the different terms like bears and twinks and all these different things in the community. It was hilarious. And we saw Pride and Prejudice and Promposals, which was it was Pride and Prejudice set in a high school, but to the theme of only Taylor Swift songs. So there was a musical version of it with Taylor Swift songs breaking out throughout the whole thing.
I think it's funny, just a moment of recollection, on our other show, Muppet Trek, which if you aren't listening to, you should be, we review a lot of the music that was in the Muppet Show, and a lot of them are from these weird old musicals, and I was trying to find out what they're about. And with like 100 years of separation, it's kind of like, man, what the hell were musicals about? But then I realized it's going to be like some record of Cocaine Bear musical. Some white guy presumably is going to look up for a podcast in 80 to 90 years. And somebody's going to go, what the hell were musicals in the 2020s?
Get this, Zorb Okay, so it was based off of a movie, which is based off of a real story. I found this on the Wikipedia 3000. It was amazing. But today we saw one called something like the Who's Afraid of the West Cherry Orchard set in a Quiznos. So basically it was the stage was set up like it was a Quiznos, and you're greeted as you come in the door by a guy dressed in a Quiznos uniform. And the premise is you're an audience coming into this new fringe venue that's in a Quiznos. And so they're trying to put on like a Chekhov style play in a Quiznos, but customers keep coming in to interrupt the performance. And he's like, why is there an audience here? I just want a sandwich. He's like, just don't worry about it. It's a fringe venue. And there's a guy stuck in the freezer. It was like ridiculous. And the person who's coming as a customer is a new person every day. He's improvising his role as he comes in. They don't know what he's going to be wearing, what he's going to be doing. So like all the cast members are surprised as they see the new customers come into the door. So it was very meta and very strange, but that's what I've been up to basically.
Wow.
Yeah. So good times.
You've been watching other people's realized dreams.
Yeah. I like supporting realized dreams
and broken realities.
Yeah. When they realize their show is terrible, that's what happens. But that leads us to some nerdy news.
It's time for Nerdy News.
All right. This week, my cheeky name for my cheeky story is Birds of the Devil. They just are. Unlike many mammal species, when males kill rival cubs or rival offspring, it's to free up their favorite ladies. But in birds, both male and females can often be seen just killing each other's offspring.
Oh my God.
The scientists at UC Berkeley have spent 30 years studying why, and they think it comes down to basically two major factors. When population density is high, females will just kill other offspring to free up nest space. They're like, thanks for doing this. And then males go in and do it so that they can bone widow birds.
Oh God.
So there is a silver lining in all this. In many of these scenarios, male birds specifically, went and adopted these offspring instead of killing them off, and took care of the orphaned eggs. And scientists are looking and trying to figure out why. Because if this is a perpetuated behavior, it must have a benefit.
Mm.
And so what they think is that, yes, sometimes they go and they just murder each other's young kind of willy-nilly. But when the guys do adopt, it's because they're typically younger, and they get to walk in with this like milfy older bird who already owns a house. And he's like, yeah, I'll watch the kids to stay here. And so he starts his like adult bird career earlier, basically, by stepping up and being the stepdad to these kids.
I'm not your stepdad. I stepped up, or whatever. There's that phrase.
Yeah. But they get ahead, and there are benefits for them because they basically get to skip ahead a level by adopting and moving into these setup nest situations with a mate that already exists.
It's like your mom remarrying some younger guy.
Yeah, exactly. He's like 12 years younger, but like at least he's nice to you, and you guys like the same video games. You know?
But he's kind of lecherous sometimes.
His name is definitely Drew.
Drew,
by the way.
He's got long hair and he smokes a lot of pot.
But he's nice to your mom, you know?
Yeah. She's great. Drew's cool.
You haven't seen her smile like this in years.
He didn't eat us, so that's cool. Or throw us out of the nest, so that's nice.
It's pretty sweet. You only killed 2 of us.
Sweet, bro. Well, that's a great nerd news.
So that is birds are the devil.
Birds are the devil. So that brings us to our main segment. Nerd roll of fortune.
We have music for this, right? Yeah, why do I have to keep doing music?
I'm tired. All right. So now what we're going to do is we have a list that we made a while back with using the help of AI to give us 20 different categories of nerdy things to talk about, and then 10 subcategories within those categories. And first we roll to see how many topics we're going to do.
So there's a maximum of 6 at play here. The D6 rolls. All right, it's going to be 3. Like nice middle number.
Nice middle number. All right.
All right.
Spend some time on these babies.
Yeah, baby.
And then I'll roll a D20 to see which category we're going to talk about, the broader category.
And I'll follow up with that D10.
Ooh, an actual 20.
Ooh, nat 20. Making it rain. Have we ever hit a nat 20 on this?
We've hit a nat 20 twice, apparently.
Man, they are not as rare and magical as I had hoped.
Apparently not. I weighted dice.
All right, I'll roll the D10. The D10 comes out to a 1.
Okay, so our category is Geeky Kids, Books, and Comics, Introducing Children to Geek Culture, because our category was Geeky Parenting and Family Activities.
Got it.
Yes.
Well, I'm already knee-deep in this, and it's going very well.
So you're trying to really guide them in that direction of being interested in geek culture when they were born?
I'm just trying to give them access to it more than anything.
Yeah.
You know, between the services we have, things I volunteer to watch with them, things I put on myself. Like, you know, the biggest learn I've had so far is you can't force them to like something. True. You kind of have to go with it and get them in the right zone.
Okay.
So like Joyce, X-Men, for example. Tried to get Joyce into X-Men. There's the original animated one, been on Disney for a while. Tried it, wouldn't watch. Dad, this is boring. Dad, this is lame. Dad, this is boring. Can I go do my iPad?
Oh.
Okay, great. Yep, no worries. Thanks for giving it a try. And then X-Men 97 comes out, which she is obsessed with. Loves X-Men. In fact, this week, yesterday, Wednesday, she was like, Dad, we forgot to watch. And I was like, there is no new episodes. The next season is after this. And she was like, and I was like, welcome to watching new television.
Did you tell her, well, we could go back and watch the old one? It's very similar.
And that's the thing. She was like, well, there's the other one. And I was like, you mean the original? She's like, yeah. So, but it had to be her idea to get there.
Right.
That was kind of my idea. It was stupid. So you just have to put it around, put it at their disposal. And then when they're looking for something, they'll find it.
I just heard recently that there was some parents that did like their own study on their children because their children had such low attention spans and wanted so much screen time. And they just happened to start only letting them watch shows from our childhood, like Mr. Rogers and Sesame Street and a lot of the slower paced shows that we used to watch. And they noticed that their kids were enjoying the shows, watched 1 or 2 episodes, and then went off to play with some toys. And they requested less screen time over time. And they were just kind of like, and it shows that it's not necessarily that just because the screens are there, the kids want them all the time, but maybe that they just have different kind of entertainment now that's so fine tuned to a children's attention span that it's like the flashing lights and the fast pace and the just the quick stuff coming at their face the whole time. Whereas the shows we watched as kids were all a lot slower pace. If you look at them, they're all kind of like taking their time. There's more of a story a lot of the times, but there's great shows that are out now. But do you find that to be true at all?
Well, yeah, especially with things like the popularity of Bluey, which are each like 6 minutes long or 6.5 minutes long. They're so rapid fire. By the time you're in and the plot is happening, it's like closing up and it's the next episode.
You're stuck to watch the next one again.
Over and over and over again. And even the longer, the 30-minute animated things that they watch now aren't actually 30-minute. They're 2 different 15-minute segments.
Right.
So like, you know, the Big City Greens is their favorite, and that's 2 12-minute stories or 2 11-minute stories. And that's like one of their favorites, but that's the theme I see over and over again. They like the shorter format.
Maybe that's the problem then. It's like making it go too fast and they're expecting to go right to the next one. And so it kind of like, because I remember the first show I ever saw that was 15 minutes long was like an Adult Swim show. It was like Space Ghost or something. Like it went by 15 minutes and then they played another one right after it. And I was like, whoa, that was fast. I remember being jarred by that. Because when we were growing up, things were 23 minutes, you know, with commercials or something. Yeah,
no, you're right. Like Cartoon Network, Adult Swim.
That's what it was, Adult Swim.
There were a lot of 12-minute shows that filled 25, 30-minute slots. Like,
that was the first time I remember seeing that was Adult Swim.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But you're absolutely right. So that is spread. So if anything, it's the new wave of that for a new generation. They learned all those lessons from fucking us up, and now they're really going to get our kids.
Well, that's what I wanted to do when I have kids. I'm looking to use you as an example to try to get my kids into geeky stuff and not scare them away from it, because I don't want them to be reactionary. Like anything parents like aren't cool. Yeah,
if you push it, they'll stop. So you have to just kind of have it around and then find something they like and lean into it.
Yeah, like maybe start with Prodigy for Star Trek.
I've tried to get Joyce on like Harry Potter. And she just won't do it. I don't want to watch it. We used to call it Sad Harry when she was little. No, I don't want to watch Sad Harry.
Sad Harry. Okay. I wouldn't want to watch Sad Harry either.
But I do think she'll eventually like them. But it's one of those things like if I push it now, she'll be like, oh, that movie you like forever.
Maybe like early teens would be a good Harry Potter time.
Yeah. It really would. But this is just too early. And the other hurdle that we're crossing is books, because she likes princesses and unicorns doing kind of fantasy, but like think My Little Pony kind of fantasy stuff. She likes that, and she's reading these graphic novels that are like nothing. They're well below where she's at, but she reads them like crazy. And I'm like, we got to figure out that next step, that next fantasy thing that's a real book we can get you onto. Because even our teachers say that that's the issue at this age when they get really ahead on reading. Like Joyce is at like a 5th grade reading level or some. It's to the point where I haven't checked in a while because I'm just not worried about it anymore. Yeah,
it'll be far in advance. It's fine.
Yeah, she's like 4 years ahead. I'm okay. We can pump the brakes. But the thing is that they need these harder books, but harder books are about more boring subjects.
Right.
And so they don't do it. They like stay at this lower level. Because even though their reading level is ahead, they don't want to read that shit.
Yeah, the themes are too different than they're interested in.
Right. They're just not the stories they want to hear, but that's the only way to challenge them is to get to read these crazier things.
She's not quite ready for a YA novel. Those are more for like preteens and teens.
She's really close. I did get her a copy of Aragon at one point. We tried reading it together, and it was just not much. Like even now, maybe she could do it. But at the time, it was just a smidge advanced.
Some perfect ones are like, I don't know what the equivalent is these days, but like My Teacher is an Alien. Remember those books and stuff? And like,
I'm trying to remember.
And like, because they were like for literally like 10-year-olds kind of thing almost, or like right before you're a preteen. And like, I had this whole Myth series, which was about a kid who went on adventures with this goblin guy throughout different dimensions. And there's a whole series. They're little small chapter books. And they always had a fun image in the front. And My Teacher is an Alien. There's a whole series of those too, like Goosebumps. Those are a good example of that too.
She has done a few Goosebumps, so it has been a while.
But it's like, what's the modern development of that? Something that's written more recently. Those are like 90s references she won't really understand.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
the problem.
I just found all the myth books you were talking about.
Yeah, I love them. They're so good.
Myth conceptions, myth directions.
Yes.
Yep, I see them.
Robert Aspirin. I have the whole series at home here on the bookshelf.
Hit or myth.
Hit or myth.
Mything person. Little myth marker. Myth ink link.
Mhm.
It's all gold. It's all gold.
They're really funny too. I laughed out loud reading them.
I mean, the ones that both my niece and Joyce went through are called Dogman, but even those are graphic novels. Like that's what I'm finding is a lot of this stuff that's like great for the kids that read is graphic novels. And I'm like, no, get them reading real things.
Yeah. Well, she's in like an awkward phase here. Maybe she'll get that past it soon, where she'll be ready for that next level.
Yeah.
Theme-wise.
Second grade coming quick.
Yeah, that's right.
What's like the one thing? Because when they're real little, they have no choice. You can do whatever you want.
Right.
You want to dress them up like a Star Trek character? They are 1.5. They can't stop you. What are you going to try to like get ingrained early?
Probably. There's actually some good kid stuff now for both Star Trek and Lord of the Rings. That can get them into it while they're young, because they won't want to read either of those things or watch a lot of Star Trek until they're older. But somehow getting them interested in those, or even the fantasy genre, because that got me through all middle school. So by middle school age, if I can get them somehow into fantasy, I'd be really happy, because then I'd be like, oh, they can relate to me on that level and that kind of thing. And that's a whole gateway into some nerddom, and basically is fantasy stuff. But of course, my dream is that Star Trek continues forever, and they keep making more kids content, and they make more teen content.
I don't know. Something would really have to bomb hard for Star Trek to like go away.
Especially at this point, they're making so much content. And have you seen Prodigy at all with your kids?
No, I don't think I have. I've watched maybe one episode myself. Yeah.
It was cute. I haven't watched much of it myself either, but it was really geared towards kids. So it wasn't something I get into, but
it didn't get renewed. Yeah,
it did. It got renewed. It's being worked on for a different platform, I think.
Got it.
So it's not going to be on Paramount Plus anymore, which is really weird, but it maybe Netflix or something like that, but still in limbo.
Yeah, but Star Trek has done that multiple times. Yeah. When UPN made Enterprise,
right?
Like
instead of CBS,
those kind of things have happened.
It's just weird that everything's so centralized at Paramount Plus now that it's strange that they're letting something go somewhere else. But I'm just glad it's being renewed. So, and they're also making a Star Trek Academy show for young adults, for teens. So that'll be a good gateway as well into the adult stuff. But
you got to figure there's got to be a certain burn point where they're making, they've got 3 new shows or 3 shows coming, I think.
Yeah.
Discovery going away, movie coming, they don't want to take on too much more, but if they can make a chunk of change and have someone else do all the legwork.
Yeah.
And they get final approval on scripts and cut.
There you go.
Sure.
But also comics,
$30 million so you can make our thing.
But not even just graphic novels, but like the whole comic universe used to be a good place to send kids for like learning some moral messages, but also learning about higher political themes. And they didn't even know they're learning about it from the comics. But I don't know if comics are that good anymore. Like, I don't know if they're still good like that. Because I didn't really read much comics.
Neither did I.
Yeah. Not much.
So therefore, probably my daughter won't either, because I don't give a shit.
Or she will, because you don't give a shit.
Yeah, that's how she rebels. I'm going to be really into comics, Dad.
That'll
show you.
Don't do that, Joyce. All right, you want to roll our D20?
Let's roll the D20. D20 says 18.
18? That's going to be theater. We've done that one a while.
Oh, hot damn.
So here's my D10. That is a 5. 5 is favorite straight plays. That doesn't mean gay or straight for you non-theater folks. It means not musicals. That's all it straight plays.
Yeah, them queer theater plays.
I don't watch them LGBTQs.
I don't know, because I don't. I'm not saying it's embarrassing to say, but as someone who's a theater major, taking in live theater is in some ways painful for me, especially lower stuff, because the way that my brain works, I just look and I notice and I pick and, those sort of things. And being a theater major, just looking at light cues. Even we went to my niece's end of the year school performance, which was just called Willy Wonka. That was roughly based off of both of the movies.
Interesting.
And God bless Lucy, you did great. You were the best dancer in your row. But even Sarah, my sister-in-law, was like, was it just me or was that way worse than last year? And it was.
Oh,
it was way worse than last year for whatever reason. But even that, they cut lights, and I was like, why is that light focus so high? The kids' heads end like 10 feet below. Also, that's the Bucket's little shanty house. They could have cut the lights there and made it seem like the roof was real low and created a night. Like, I just do that. So live theater reserved. So I haven't seen a ton of theater.
Well, no, it's kind of like, in a sense, like a person who really likes playing football, but doesn't like going to football games.
Yeah, I don't go to football games because that was what I did.
Yeah, so it's like you like to be in theater, but not necessarily go see it. That's totally separate kind of interest almost.
Yeah.
You know? But I had the same kind of thing with films, like, because I was in film school for a while there. I remember I would overanalyze everything because of all the theater or the film theory classes I took and the cinematography classes and screenwriting. But now, luckily, I've forgotten enough of that over the 20 years since I.
Yeah, true. I should try to see something here. And now
my brain is definitely not as
thing.
attuned to that film stuff as it used to be. Because I remember thinking, oh, that composition's terrible, and why'd they make that camera choice? And now I'm just like, I'm in a movie, so that's all I care about. But so, favorite straight plays when you could think of maybe that you did like in the past.
So things I'll say the most memorable. I'm not sure the ones I liked. So I went to one of the first pieces of the theater I went to in Seattle was something called Frankinocchio. And it was a marionette play with voiceover over it, like a narrator in different parts, but it was all marionette. And it was a retelling of Pinocchio, but instead of a little boy made out of wood, he's like a Frankenstein's monster. And every time he tells a lie, his boner would grow. Kid you not. And there was like a circus involved at one point. This is very vague memories, but this legit happened. Frankinocchio occurred. It was not just a fever dream I had. And I remember going and I'm like, so there is bad theater here. Like but that was my first one in Seattle, and it was awful, but technically a straight play.
That's true. I have to say most of the plays I do enjoy, which is different categories, I won't go into them, are musicals because I don't necessarily like being in musicals more, but I like seeing them more usually because there's so much more going on. It keeps me awake and stimulated, and I think I am affected by more of the emotions in musicals a lot of times. But straight plays, there's a lot of good ones out there. I like a lot of comedies, and one I was in, which I thought would have been great, but it was during the pandemic, so it kind of sucked things up, which was Dangerous Liaisons. I was in that play, and I think it'd be so cool to see it done properly without us having to wear masks, because everyone's supposed to be incredibly passionate, like making out, and like there's sex scandals all throughout the play, and it's all these dangerous sword fighting. There's all this kind of cool stuff that was in it. And that was really fun to do. But also Shakespeare plays, that's what I was saying. It also relates to the kids thing we were talking about. Was I had no interest in Shakespeare growing up because all I was doing is reading it in class. And when you read Shakespeare in class as a kid, especially, or a teen, it makes no sense and it's boring. But as soon as I saw a professional production of it, the Orlando Shakes here in Orlando, I was like, oh, I get it now. Like this can be done really entertainingly, and these great like basic stories that we see in all these different movies from then on are in Shakespeare. So I love seeing a professional, I'll put it out there, professional Shakespeare play. As you say, the amateur ones can be kind of rough and you don't understand what's happening because the actors don't understand what they're performing. But when they understand what they're doing and what they're saying, it comes across even if you don't understand the words they're saying because they're acting it so well. So like, oh my God, I saw Titus Andronicus, which is not as much done Shakespeare play, but super bloody and violent. And I got to see that in the Royal Shakespeare Company. They had a Japanese theater company come and do it in Japanese, but it was like, they put it in the samurai era, the old samurai costumes on, and they're just killing people left and right. And these people come by and pull out these long strings of like ribbons of red as they're taking their samurai sword and cutting through people. And I was like, okay, this is awesome. So that's some of the best straight plays I've seen are probably Shakespeare plays.
I've only seen a couple live Shakespeare's. What I remember was there was a Shakespeare in the Park in downtown Orlando we got taken to in high school.
Yeah, that Orlando Shakes did that. Yeah,
the big amphitheater there. And it was a summer thing. And what I remember about going is there was this kid who didn't show up to school that day named John. That name's so general, I'll just use it, John. And we got there and he like showed up on his bike. So he was already like kind of in hot water because he didn't come to school. And then he showed me, he's like, I only live like 7 blocks away. Like I just rode over. I didn't want to go all the way into school. Teachers were all pissed at him. So he finally said, and then when the actors were running through, so at one point they had torches, I believe. And he did like a joking move to trip one of them. And I remember he got fucking expelled. I think he got expelled.
Oh my God.
As I remember correctly, for tripping a performer with a torch in there.
That's not a good idea, kid. Oh God.
John did not have an A+ day.
We need to get you some more Shakespeare experiences somewhere down the line. Professional ones.
Yeah.
So you can really enjoy it.
Sure.
I have to mention, of course, that when I studied in Stratford upon Avon for college, I got to see Patrick Stewart in Antony and Cleopatra in the Swan Theater and like right near the Globe. And he was close enough where he could be spitting on me doing Antony and Cleopatra. And this was...
Did you try to catch any in your mouth?
I would have. This was
right here.
18 years ago. I saw
Give
this.
It to me, Patrick.
So he was like, he's like almost 90 now, I guess. So he was like maybe 70 or something like that. And he was ripped. Like he had his shirt off most of the play. And I remember he also had a hairpiece on. So he looked like he was 20 years younger and he had beautiful abs and everything sticking out. And I was like, Jesus. And then he was like making out Cleopatra on stage. I was like, this is awesome. And I also remember Ben Kingsley's son was in it. So Ben Kingsley was reportedly there that night. I didn't see him. So we all went to this pub because we had permission to go because we were part of the NYU program that was working with the Royal Shakespeare Company, because all the actors were supposedly going to come afterwards. Like, oh God, is Patrick Stewart going to come? Is Ben Kingsley going to come? But Ben Kingsley's son was there and a lot of the younger cast, but none of the older cast were there.
Yeah, of course not. Those guys don't want to fucking go out with you.
Yeah. But the biggest story I have from that was we waited at the stage door. I told this story before a long time ago, probably, but people were waiting for autographs from the actors, including Patrick Stewart. And Cleopatra comes out. I can't remember her name, but she was a big British actress at the time. And she was graciously signing autographs, talking to people. Patrick Stewart finally comes out like 10 minutes later with one of those like newsboy caps on real low. And he starts immediately trying to beeline away from the crowd. And then someone's like, Mrs. Stewart, can I have an autograph? Do you mind? And he's like, actually, I do. And he keeps walking and he walks away. And it's like, Jesus, doesn't sound like a normal Patrick Stewart. Usually he's very friendly. So he didn't give us any autographs, but I got to see him close up.
Live theater is late and he's tired.
He had to be tired, of course.
He's already done this 22 times.
It's true. So yeah, some of my favorite straight plays right there. I guess I'll roll that D20.
Yeah, hit it.
We got I can't see this. This is a horrible dice to use in the dark.
Good job.
It's a 9. So that's going to be, all right, science fiction and fantasy literature.
And 4.
4 is going to be cyberpunk novels, tech-infused worlds, and cybernetic enhancements. I don't think we have anything to say about this. I don't know.
No. So with the first one, no. Cyberpunk futures, no. That being said, I have read some things that fall into that category that I have liked, as far as Future War and things like Starship Troopers.
What's Future War?
I think it's Future War or Forever War. I always get it confused.
Because Future War sounds familiar. I just don't know what it is.
Let's see. The Forever War. There we go. The Forever War. And like Ender's Game. And it's a Starship Troopers where people are using exoskeletons. It is that they've gotten tech a little bit better, a little bit more miniaturized, that they can integrate it. You know, there are people that get hurt and get sewn back together with inorganic material or get replacement limbs. Like those things are in some of the sci-fi novels that I like. That being said, I would not ever think of any of them as cyberpunk novels.
That's true.
Though admittedly in Forever War, there's a point where he comes back to Earth, and because of time dilation, it's been a certain amount of time, and I think it's his mom now lives like in like a mega building, and when she goes out, she has to hire a guy to like escort her out to keep her safe, and it's like almost a cyberpunk setting.
That's true.
That's the closest I've ever been.
I think it's cyberpunk. It's like that's with like the gears and stuff, right? Like it's steampunk. I'm thinking of steampunk.
Yeah, steampunk also terrible.
That was a big in the 2000s, man.
Take your goggles and go home, steampunk.
No one cares.
I put cogs on everything.
They don't even do anything, but they look cool. I mean, I've read Star Trek novels that have some cybernetic enhancements in them, of course.
True, like the Borg and stuff. I guess that's cyberpunk this whole time. I've been watching TNG is a cyberpunk show.
And Geordie LaForge, he's got the cybernetic implant thing for his eyes. So there you go. That's some tech-infused world.
Okay. So since there's nothing really to say about this for us, let's dream something up. What would a Star Trek cyberpunk type show look like? In that we know that there were major nuclear wars, after which there was like a major scramble for resources. Like these are things established in canon.
Yeah.
Because that people filed down into these very dense like cities. Bam. So you have like a 300 or 400 years ago Star Trek prequel show. It
would take place right after the genetic wars or whatever with Khan. So we could literally show them capturing Khan after the wars are over, sending him off into space, and the rest of his followers having to be rounded up. They could be like the villains of the week is finding the rest of Khan's cybernet or genetically enhanced.
Oh yeah,
the rest of his army to find them where their little pockets of resistance are setting, and then you could have like the Federation trying to rebuild itself or trying to build itself for the first time. That'd be very cybernetic or cyberpunk.
Yeah, and there's like peaks of new tech, and maybe one of the new characters works for some government body that will eventually become the like building blocks of Starfleet. You could throw Zephyr Cochrane in there.
Yeah, young Zephyr Cochrane, who's like figuring stuff out.
That's not saying it's cyberpunk. They're out in the wilderness, but it's that same kind of vibe.
Yeah, kind of like patchwork, putting tech together kind of thing, like just really scrappy.
Brilliant minds make a few big advances.
Yeah, because by the time we get to Enterprise, the series we're going to watch later, it's already past Zephyr Cochrane at that point. So like we could go before, like when he's just starting out, like because it's right after the genetic wars, and so that'd be pretty cool. Dude. I'd read or watch the hell out of that.
See, that's okay. Good. I see we found something to talk about.
There you go.
All right. Now, what would a cyberpunk Muppet show look like?
Someone's demolished the Muppet Theater. And now it's just the remaining Muppets who survived having to try to piece it back together. Muppets started spreading a disease, so they were hunted near extinction. And it turns out that it wasn't them, but like the stigma has never gone away. So they live in the shadows or these small ramshackle communities, all of them nursing along cybernetic legs. Also because what destroyed the Muppet Theater was a reality bomb, and it hit right when they were doing the Muppets in Space number. So it kind of shattered the space reality time continuum to where the tech from the Muppets in Space became real and shattered amongst all the Muppets. And so they were all kind of infused with future technology knowledge at the same time.
But that would be a later season reveal. That would be a flashback.
Yes.
We wouldn't know that from the beginning. It would be one of the questions of like, well, where did this even come from?
Where
I don't know. We just live with it.
We just live with it. All the voices of the Muppets.
I love how that was definitely Yoda, though.
That was definitely Yoda. I don't know why. It's still Henson related.
Is it weird? I can feel them itch. Ah. Waka waka.
Hey, get the hell out of here. Yeah, have the like Statler and Waldorf have like cybernetic bodies. Like they're super powerful.
Now Statler definitely died in the culling.
But not Waldorf.
Nah. Waldorf's mean.
He survives.
He did. He's a survivor.
Well, I think it takes us to some radical recommends.
Oh, yeah.
Recommend. If you have the means, I highly recommend picking one up.
What do you recommend I do?
I recommend pleasant.
All right. This one is something I'm late to the game on. This has been out. There's actually 4 seasons of it, but I just got it recommended. I think we're watching it through Hulu, I believe. But it's actually from the History Channel, and it is called The Food That Built America. It is a docudrama style show with interviews interlaced with like historical reenactment kind of stuff that really shows the building blocks and the important figures in like the food that made America tick. So the first episode talks about like the Kellogg brothers and Post and their feud and how they battled each other. And then really the win is that Post handed the business over to his daughter, who ended up investing in like Hellman's Mayo and like 12 other things that that still exist. We're all from this one deal from forever ago. She's also the one that like invested in refrigerators units to put in to shopping centers so that they could sell frozen food. Because there was a long time where the public in general didn't have freezers or refrigerators at home. And so because of that, frozen food could only reach a certain market because there weren't enough people that had freezers to keep it. And so it took this like heiress of Post to invest a crap ton of money and literally pay for these freezers to go into markets. Like they literally paid. They're like, we'll install it.
That's smart.
And then it was only once it was in markets and in regularity that the sale of refrigerators that had been around for like almost a decade actually started rising and becoming a common household item.
All because of her.
And like, you know, this guy, God, the hell is his name? Birdsong or something. That is still like the 1/4 of all frozen vegetables.
Oh yeah, I've seen that brand. Yeah.
Bird something. So it's just these crazy companies that are like built into the essence. There's a whole one on Hershey. Just watched through one about like the birth of fast food, the different kind of players there. But each episode kind of builds on the one before it. And so you get to see these sort of stepping stone moments with callbacks to the prior episode of some breakthrough someone made or some player that comes back into the picture. Like,
of how we got to the hellscape we're in now.
Yeah. So this is called The Food That Built America. I highly recommend it. If you like any sort of history, true fact kind of stuff, you're really going to dig it. And there's fun visuals because they do good reenactment, good costumes and period and that kind of stuff. So
that sounds fascinating.
Highly recommend.
Love a good documentary. And that brings us to some trailer reviews. All right, this time around, we're talking about Jim Henson, Idea Man. It's a movie directed by Ron Howard, a documentary all about Jim Henson, which is close to our hearts since we have the Muppet Trek show, which we've already mentioned earlier in this podcast. Check it out if you haven't already. But yeah, Steve, what do you think of this trailer?
So, I mean, of course, this is of special import to me, to the point where I didn't rewatch the trailer for this episode because the last few times I have, I cried a little bit. I decided I didn't want to do that again. And Ron Howard is directing, so I trust him. And he's come out and said, I think the audience is going to learn some surprising things about Jim through this documentary. My only hesitation as a fan is that as a upper 5% fan,
sure,
not probably upper 1%, but upper 5% fan, I've really tried to ingest a lot of this behind the scenes stuff, a lot of lesser known stuff, unknown. I used to have an entire folder that was 600 gigs of lost Jim Henson stuff and whole collections of commercials he did that had all been digitized out of the vaults.
Oh, wow.
And so I've consumed it. And so my fear is that I'm just going to see a bunch of stuff I've seen before.
You'd still love it, though.
But I'll still love it, and I'll still eat that shit up like a piggy. I would love it to be surprised and get to see something I really haven't seen before, didn't know exist before. And I hope there's that.
Yeah, I bet there is some, because having the power and pull of Ron Howard and being on Disney Plus, they probably have access to things that no one's had access to before.
My hope is that, them digitizing things people have had access to. That's my hope. But in the trailer, with the exception of a few things, it's a lot of stuff that I have seen or have some context to what it came from.
Right.
So from the trailer alone, I'm just kind of it's just gonna This is going to scratch that itch I want.
Whereas for me, it's like being a 60%er fan at this point. I'll learn so much, like something I don't know. And hopefully there's no, skeletons in the closet we're going to find out about, because we want to be happy about Jim Henson, but I don't know of anything bad that he's ever done that we're aware of. So hopefully that's not the case, because a lot of these documentaries kind of expose those things. But
I feel like with the reach and stuff, by now, if something was going to come out, it would have.
I think the main thing they hinted at from the documentary is that his kids love him, but they did admit that he was away a lot because he was working so much.
Yeah, and that's Brian Henson talks pretty openly about that.
Yeah, that's totally fair.
He's like, yeah, there were times I would go on my summer break and film a movie. Like Brian Henson was on set for Great Muppet Caper. And then later getting to work with him on things like Fraggle Rock. Like those sort of things did occur, but the issue is that in between there, the adolescence years were
probably rough.
Jim was making a commercial, followed by the show, followed by blank, everything on location in the UK,
Yeah, he says in the clip, it even says it was his life. It's his life. It's his whole life. It's not a 9-to-5 job. It's a vision. Yeah. So that's why he's the idea man.
Okay. So here's what I give this movie. All right. So Raul Julia is looking for his favorite pen. He wants to write a letter. He writes a letter every weekend to his aunt in upstate New York. And he can't find his favorite pen. And he goes, Gary, God damn it. And he goes and he walks into Gary's room. And he goes, if you took my pen one more time, and he flips the light on, and there's Gary Busey, and he turns around stark, and his pants are off, but down below are cybernetic legs. And he's like, got a screwdriver, and he's like, wait, Raul, it's not what it looks like. All right, I got to come clean. And he kind of pops off his legs with and puts himself down. He's like, I am a puppet. I've been hiding it for years. These cybernetic legs.
That would make so much sense.
Just put the pen back when you're done, please. And he turns the light off, leaving Gary in the dark, and closes the door.
All this time, he's been a Muppet. It makes so much sense.
I've been a Muppet the whole time.
He's Animal's son.
It all adds up.
I'm giving this trailer. So you just have the camera zooming from outside of Raul and Gary Busey's house, and it slowly zooms until it goes through the window with that special effect we've all seen so many times now. And it's real slow, and it's kind of darker in there, but there's a little light in the corner turned on, and you see Gary Busey with his back to the camera, and he's just kind of rocking there in the couch really slowly. You hear some light music playing, and then you hear him just like having a conversation. I know, Raul, I know, it's great. And you see a picture on the wall, rest in peace, Raul Julia. And then you see this whole time, it's just been him with his best friend that's passed away as a Muppet on his lap that he's been figuring as a puppet this whole time, talking to because he misses his friend, Raul Julia. And it's sad.
Aw.
But it's poignant.
Oh, Raul.
Raul. We apologize to Raul Julia's estate.
That's true. The one thing I do hope that we get is some good, deep Frank Oz cuts.
Because he's got the knowledge.
And the fact that he agreed to do this and it's being Disney driven is good, because he basically says he got cut out.
Yeah. He probably got convinced by Ron Howard. Be like, look, we're going to honor your friend. We want you there. Yeah,
you got to be there. Because there's only, and that's the other thing. I didn't see any other of the performers.
Not in the trailer.
That are still around, mind you, which is narrow. But you got like Fran Brill and Dave Goles and Bill Beretta and like a few.
That's a decent amount.
A handful. There's probably 3 or 4 more I'm not thinking of, but yeah.
Hopefully
they are still alive. So I hope they get more. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's Jim Henson idea, man.
Well, that takes us to the end of episode 198. Join us next time for episode 199 in honor of A Quiet Place. Day 1, we honor another third installment in a classic alien invasion franchise. That's right, folks. We're talking about Species 3. We're bringing you a rule of 3 to celebrate A Quiet Place Day 1.
They all said it out loud with you at the same time because they knew that's what you're talking about, of course.
That damn right they did, because these are our people. Speaking of our people, come on back and be our nerdy audience. We will come on back and be your nerdy co-hosts. Thanks again, Internet.
Stay nerdy, my friends. Thanks for listening to A Play on Nerds. Feel free to email feedback at aplayonnerds.com with all your questions or comments.
Shoot us a message on Facebook or Twitter and earn yourself a sweet shout out on the show.
Review us on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts so even more nerds can find us. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, we aren't picky.
Check out our entire back catalog and other offerings at aplayonnerds.com.
And how?